Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out at the DAZN headquarters in London, Hammersmith, with DAZN's Alfie Sharman. DAZN, I called you there. Alfie, great to see you. How's life treating you?
Very good. I have been called DAZN before. I'm very well, thanks. Good to be here. Nice sunny day. Lifts the mood a little bit. Very busy for us, very well, and it's good to be talking to you.
Yeah, I guess set the table for us. The plans for 2025, how you feel you've executed those so far, and the ones you want to execute for the rest of the year.
Well, look, I mean, where are we? We're 1st of April today. It's pre-midday, so I'm half expecting this potentially to be a bit of a stitch up, but it's good. I mean, look, obviously Queensbury onboarded as of today. Lots of work has been taking place in the last, kind of 6 months really on that, but particularly for me and my team in the last kind of 2-3 months, we've been building up plans for that. Obviously, we've had some changes for the event this Saturday, which we've experienced many times before. So we're in good shape. We've obviously delivered some major events. Obviously, the Feb card, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest cards of all time. I wasn't actually out there for that. I watched at home. I had commitments, and speaking very proudly about DAZN, I think it was one of the best broadcasts that I've seen, and we're on, I think, 60 fight nights already for up to the 1st of April, on track to deliver over 185 fight nights this year. Delivered close to that last year versus a claim of 150. So the volume is still a very important part for us to cater for boxing fans all over the world, putting fights on from, of course, the UK, the United States, but Australia, all over the world. We've got Jai Apataya returning soon. We obviously had Jai the first week back after New Year against David Naika, which was a great fight. So yeah, look, I'm not going to go through and list all the 60 plus fights, but outside of live events, we're spending a lot of time and money into our non-live content. Ariel and Ade show is doing very well for us. Lots of partnerships with lots of social first platforms and influencers to take our reach to more diverse audiences. So yeah, lots of work, very busy, and we're entering a period now in April and May in particular with some unbelievable fights, pay-per-view, part of your subscription, UK, US, global. So we're very busy, but very good.
On the onboarding of Queensbury Promotions, I believe it was the case that TNT Sports did bid and want to continue their working relationship with Frank Warren and Queensbury moving forward. What do you feel was the decisive factor that made Frank move over to DAZN rather than staying with TNT?
Well, I'd like to think it's our very clear commitment to the sport of boxing. Frank is, obviously a Hall of Fame promoter, one of the most decorated promoters of all time. He's a boxing fanatic, extremely passionate about it, and I think it's palpable, DAZN's passion. Hopefully people can see from a consumer lens the commitment we have to the sport of boxing. I think that's demonstrated by our investment in capital, our investment in diversifying our platform, working with over 30 promoters. No one's ever done that before. No one has ever put on the volume of fights that we've delivered, certainly in the last 2+ years, and what we plan to deliver this year. So I'd like to think that it's a commitment to the sport of boxing, but also our quality of broadcast. And yeah, I think boxing is in a really hot streak for the last kind of 12 to 18 months. I'd like to think that our immersion from kind of being a upstart kind of new player in the boxing world, which we were 5 to 6 years ago, we're now undeniably the global home. So I think it makes sense for boxing promoters to gravitate to where the most boxing is. It gives Frank the opportunity to mix it with some of the biggest promoters in the world. Of course, Eddie and Matchroom, Golden Boy, Salita, MVP, the list goes on. And it makes fights easier to make. And, it's no secret, I'm a boxing fan and I've worked in boxing now, fortunate enough to do that for the last 4 years. Making fights isn't easy. And a lot of the instances in the past, it's not purely down to broadcasters, but broadcaster deals, broadcaster relationships has been one of a few barriers. Having all of the promoters all in one place not only makes it easier for the promoters to do business and make fights, it makes it easier for the fighters to be more active, to fight people that they want to fight. It means that there's less places for fighters to hide. And also the consumer, fewer subscriptions, a simpler consumer journey, and a simpler access point to watch boxing, which I think the sport has needed, and I'm happy that we're providing that at DAZN, and I think that's why Frank would have chosen come with us.
With that brings, at least when I spoke to Frank Warren at the start of the year, he said, look, I've joined DAZN, but by no means am I holding hands with Eddie Hearn. I'm in competition with him. I want to be the lead promoter in a sense at DAZN. How does DAZN view it? Of course, you're working with them both and want to facilitate the best fights for the fans, but will you in the end look for one lead promoter between the two of them? How does it work, at least in the infancy and then in the long term?
No, it doesn't work like that from our point of view. Whether that means the lead promoter does come out, that's normally going to be, that will be determined by the quality of the fights that they put on. And of course, the victories, if they start facing against each other. I mean, if you look at the 5v5 last year, it was pretty one-sided for Queensbury, 5-0, I think it was on the night. So one would assume that based on that outing, Queensbury was winning last year. We stay agnostic. We have deals with each individual promoters, and we have a commitment to each of those to deliver their fights around the world and to give their fighters activity and premium quality broadcast. I would love for there to maintain that healthy competition, which I'm sure, I know Frank, I know Eddie, I know the promoters on the platform, they're competitors, and they obviously want their fighters to win, but they want to be the best promoter in the world. And that means we win as a broadcaster because it's all going to be taking place on our platform. And as corny as it sounds, the consumers also win because they are going to want to compete against each other. You've seen Eddie talk about it in the last few weeks. Frank has had a very good 6 months, lots of good signings, lots of massive wins. And it's given him the impetus and the appetite to, applaud it and be proud that he's also sharing the broadcaster with us. Obviously, Eddie's been with us for a very long time and a fantastic ambassador for our brand as well as his own. But he will want to beat Frank, which means that the onus is on him to go out and produce the fights. The same with Oscar in the States and the many others. So, yeah, as I say, we're agnostic, and I think competition means a better product, so we'll continue to push it.
What about the uncontrollables, which are the ones, I guess, outside of the scene? You've got Frank and Eddie in-house alongside Oscar De La Hoya with Golden Boy and others, but you've also got Ben Shalom with Sky Sports. A lot of rumours surrounding the relationship there. But how do you view the other platforms? Because having taken Frank Warren onto DAZN, that leaves TNT without a promoter and the talk of whether they continue. Is that, in a sense, a bit of a double whammy win for DAZN in a sense, because you've go a step forward to being the home of boxing that you want to be? How do you view the competition outside of the platform?
Well, competition, I'm a fan of competition. I think competition keeps you sharp. It makes us push for better. We've achieved great things from being the underdog. So we need to maintain some of that energy and some of that desire to be better. I know, myself and the boxing team at DAZN, obviously I work with hundreds of people in our business who work on the boxing business, and I don't recall a time when we've ever kind of taken a deep breath and patted ourselves on the back for longer than a couple of minutes, even though we've had some pretty significant wins against the odds. I think in the last 5 or 6 years, boxing's a tough sport, it's a competitive sport. With regards to other competitors, I'm never going to wish, I'm not going to sit here and celebrate that we've taken something from someone else. I wish them the very best. And as I say, I mean it when I say that competition is very good for us. Selfishly, it's been our objective and will continue to be our objective in a ruthless manner to have more boxing than anyone else, because that's our product. And we spend a lot of time, effort and money into supporting that claim of being the global home of boxing. It takes a lot of work to do that. So we need to maintain the ruthlessness to still bring people to us. And by design, that means that they don't go anywhere else. But we wish everyone the very best of luck to whatever they're doing. You're talking about products here who like DAZN and multi-sport products. TNT obviously have Champions League, domestic football, etc., etc. So they'll be okay. As we have domestic football in many, many territories, Formula One, multi-sports, hundreds of sports on our platform. For the markets that I look after, boxing is primarily our pure play product. So it's our job to maximise it and make us have a better boxing product than anyone else in the world, which I feel that we do have.
Yeah, Bob Arum had recently mentioned on interviews that he's looking to work closely with the PBC. If we rewind back a couple of months, I think he was saying he was having some preliminary conversations with DAZN about the potential, I guess, of onboarding. What can you say as to any development conversation with Bob Arum and Top Rank?
Nothing to say from my side. I haven't. And look, they're an active promoter. Obviously, Bob's skin in the game is undeniable. He's a decorated promoter. He's done amazing things for sport boxing. They continue to have a boxing product and putting on some shows, which I hope they continue to do. Coming back to my previous point of competition, and I suppose that's all I have to say on it. Really, we haven't I'm not going to disclose any kind of sensitive conversations, but I think for us, we're focusing very much on where we are at the moment and come back to the top of the interview. We have plenty on our plate to deliver. We're putting very bold claims out in market of, the global home of boxing, more fights than anywhere else. We need to deliver those. So there isn't really much time for me to focus on too much noise outside of what we're doing ourselves.
One thing that comes up in conversations whenever, I remember the meal whenever all the journalists were invited to, I think it was Milo's with Frank Warren and yourselves. The topic of conversation, I guess from the outside looking in, was that DAZN's success in the UK hinges upon having football on the platform. And you guys were very steadfast in saying, no, that's not the case. We don't view our success either in terms of subscribership or with the need of football.
Sure.
Could you, I guess, explain as to why the success isn't based on those parameters for DAZN?
Well, yeah, because it's very clear, and the proof is in what we've been doing over the last 4 years, that you can be a successful business with a focused sports property, and that in our instance is primarily boxing in the UK. And I think for us to come out and I still to this day very much disagree that the success of a sports business in the UK hinges on domestic football, because that suggests that no one beyond who has football at this moment in time can be a success. Our boxing business is profitable. It's not easy to get to that point, certainly in a sport of boxing, which is extremely volatile. There's lots of money involved in it, and it's very competitive. It's taken us a lot of work to get to this point without domestic football. Now, of course, we've just signed a deal with the Club World Cup, where DAZN will broadcast it exclusively worldwide for free on our platform. That is going to bring a huge amount of viewership and eyeballs to our platform and allow us to cross-pollinate our boxing proposition with football fans, raise awareness of... We're under no illusions that domestic football in the UK is the biggest sport. Football's the biggest sport in the world. Would we love to have that volume on our platform? Yes. Fortunately, now with the Club World Cup in June, we will have that. But I think to say, does the success of a business hinge on just the one sports property? It's quite defeatist to say, yes, it does. So I stand by that. But as I say, I do accept that the amount of volume and eyeballs that football brings to your platform can, of course, be fruitful. But we're doing very well without it so far.
What would you say has been the biggest change since Turki Al Sheikh's introduction to the sport for DAZN specifically?
For DAZN specifically, well, of course, we've had a fantastic relationship with His Excellency and his team, since the start, really, since the Battle of the Baddest. You have to help me out. When was that? November 22, 23, 23. We've broadcast. We've got a deal now with Riyadh season. We're working very well with Rim magazine as well. I think what it's done for us is obviously allowed us to continue to deliver against our claims of that boxing is for everyone in the world. What Turki is doing is putting on. He's making fights happen that other promoters candidly would have struggled with. It's no secret how he's going about doing that, with obviously lots of passion, but lots of investment and determination, I think is the word. There's a very determined man to get these things done. It takes a lot of work and not just an investment. I can assure you of that. What working with him has enabled us to put on some of the biggest fights of the last 2 years to boxing fans in over 200 territories, which is principally our product. Now, Riyadh season, Ring magazine, all of the other promoters and rights holders that work with us work with DAZN because we deliver that for them. No one else can deliver that volume at scale, worldwide, genuinely worldwide. But we need the fights to be able to continue our business, and what Turki and his team have been doing allows us to do that. Obviously, we work with many other people and we put on lots of shows outside of Riyadh season and Ring magazine. But as I say, it's undeniable in the last 2 years, some of the biggest and best shows, the best fights have come with thanks to Turki Al Sheikh. So, I think allowing our product to be the best it can be by putting on these shows is what it's brought for us. And also it's opened doors to fantastic other relationships. We've obviously had the Esports World Cup, which, may not be lots of your viewers cup of tea, but it was for a lot of people, I can assure you, on the DAZN platform. We obviously have the WBC Grand Prix tournament as well, which very much leans into our philosophy of up and coming stars and the importance of developing young talent as well as the guys who are already right at the top. So he very much aligns with our belief, passion and philosophy for the sport of boxing, that it's for everyone, and it needs to be the best of the best, but also think into the future about the next generation. So long may it continue.
Yeah, a lot of those doors opening have meant that boxing fans have had access to pay-per-views across all the platforms, TNT, Sky Sports, DAZN, boxing. But from a business perspective, I guess that's sharing a piece of the pie, and businesses will want a bigger piece of the pie. Has there been any conversation regarding getting exclusive rights to pay-per-views for the Riyadh season, these Saudi fights and these big fights that are being made for the future?
Yes, there has. I mean, look, we're in a position where we're not, obviously it will be a lot easier for us to sell the products. I mean, look, to be clear, we share the rights in the UK and the US only. DAZN is the only place in that you can watch the fight worldwide. If you look ahead to Ryan Garcia and Canelo versus Skull, DAZN will be the exclusive broadcaster for both of those events, so they won't be shared. They in Riyadh season and Ring Magazine, they are obviously not new properties, but in the boxing space, they've had a very aggressive growth in the last 2 years. And I have great respect for what they're doing. They're trying to understand and they're trying to learn and test the market. They obviously take advice and take recommendations from and consultation from people who have worked in the sport for a long time, but they have a vision. And a big part of that vision is establishing how best to distribute their product to people around the world. And a big part of that vision and philosophy and part of that testing approach is to offer the rights in certain territories and key territories to a mixed range of broadcasters to try and reach as many people as possible. I understand that philosophy. It's undeniable, the people that we're sharing with, their footprint in the market, the likes of ESPN, for example, in the United States, Sky, TNT. But I must stress the growth that the DAZN is seeing, certainly in those two territories in particular, but globally, in the last 2 years in particular. The more that we grow, the more sports that we have on our platform, like Club World Cup, for example, which is going to see millions of new customers visiting our platform. Our focus is to continue to put on these events to fans worldwide. And I think for Turkey and his team, it will continue to be a testing exercise for them. Would we like to have, obviously, exclusivity all the time? Yeah, sure. And we can deliver that. We've proven that we can deliver that. But as I say, they have a vision, they have a philosophy, and they have a plan. We're a partner. And behind closed doors, we will support and we will collaborate as best as we can, and we'll continue to do that.
Lastly, all the conversation about the fights that are being delivered for the boxing fans, I think the biggest and key thing for boxing fans is where it hits them in the back pocket. And you were keen to say that with the onboarding of Queensbury Promotions, that wouldn't result in an increase for DAZN viewers. I think you've got an offer as well on for new customers as well. But what can you say about the retainership of the current price for new and existing subscribers? Yeah,
no plans to change. I mean, as you rightfully say, on the contrary, we're actually offering 30% off to people at this moment in time. So if you come in up until the 7th of April, you can get DAZN on an annual plan for £10 a month. And if you cast your mind back to the volume of shows that we're talking about, as well as the premium nature, if you look in the next 2 months ahead, you've got some amazing fights, pay-per-view events, but also fights as part of your subscription. Lee Wood, Anthony Kakachi, Josh Taylor versus Essuman. Obviously the fight this weekend, Joe Joyce and Hergovich, Dalton Smith returning. We have, who else? We've got Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen rematch, which is going to be unbelievable as part of your DAZN subscription, and many more to be announced. So yeah, no plans to adjust pricing. We'll be sticking with that. If anything, we're going the other way at this moment in time. So I encourage people to take advantage of that because it's a very strong offer. And yeah, it further reaffirms our commitment to boxing fans.